So today we're going to run through our P6-Scrubber tool. I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm coming to you not from Calgary today. I'm actually in Montreal today. And as I mentioned, I've got cardinals in the background, so it's a good day. Beautiful, hot, bit too hot maybe, weather. With me, I get to do the easy part. I'm just going to do the lead in, lead out. But Sue Hopkins is joining us from Wyoming, and she will be doing the deep dive into P6-Scrubber. So let's talk about P6-Scrubber, why we built it, and let me give you some of the background as to why we put this tool together. So we have many large clients who have multiple databases, multiple environments, multiple plants, and the struggle has always been to be able to manage imports that they're receiving either from their engineering firms or from contractors, and just having to deal with keeping the database clean, tidy, making sure nothing overwrites things that you've got in your system, all those things that you might also be struggling with to ensure that you've got quality in your database and, of course, quality in your outputs, your reporting. So several years ago, we started to say, well, rather than keep doing things the way we're doing, let's put our brains together and let's start to put together a tool that will help take away these common struggles. And not only are they struggles, they're usually a waste of time, money, and resources. So that's really where P6-Scrubber came to be. So I thought before I go a little any further, let me just ask you, how do you deal with projects from outside team members? Let me go ahead and ask the question. If you want to answer, you can. If you don't, that's okay too. I'll just leave it up for a second. So what we find is the most common solutions is some of our clients have a totally separate cleaning database. Others actually log in to the XER and change it manually. Very dangerous. We've seen some very bad things from that. And other just import it, try and communicate what they want, and they just clean it up when they get it in their main database. So we see lots of different approaches. Now, when you import the XER, there's a lot of things to worry about or take care of, right? There's codes, there's global codes, there's calendars, there's resources. So we want to make sure that when we import that XER, we're not dealing with all this pollution. And there's a lot of it. Now, not only can you get things that you don't really want in your database, which makes it harder for your team to use, but you could also have things that collide, which makes an overwrite, and that could really be dangerous for your scheduling, especially calendars. Calendars would be a very normal or the most frightening part that you could have, but so could resources. So the other thing that we've got several clients who have very key specifications on what they're expecting to see from a submission, either from a contractor or from an engineering company. So they wanted a method to be able to receive those schedules, critique them, and of course, get feedback very, very quickly. So let me ask just another quick question. And if you're struggling with this, how much time do you think you're spending on it? Okay, so we've got a different range in it. Of course, it totally depends on how much of these imports you're dealing with. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share the people who are able to answer. So we do find that it can be quite a bit of work, especially if you're getting the updates more than once a month. So some of our clients, it's pretty common where you might be on a weekly, bi-weekly, or so every 2 weeks, or monthly cycle on updates. And if you're in a turnaround, usually people don't do XERs in a turnaround. It could even be worse. So it very much depends, of course, on how many projects you've got, how many projects you've got, of course, and how many times you're doing uploads. That's really going to dictate how often, but it's considerable amount of time. and having any way that could make your life easier, take this stress, this frustration, this challenge away is really why we built P6 Loader. So let me touch on how it works. Okay, so how it works is you have a file or multiple files with one or many projects in it. You want to bring those files in and you want to scrub them, clean them up. And to do that, we have not only the ability to clean up data elements, but we also have some of these straggler things that have been frustrating P6 users for the last number of versions, the POBS table and the risk types. So you're also going to be able to clean up those sort of straggler elements. Now, the way the scrubbing takes place is we can check UDFs, codes, cost codes. We mentioned calendars. We mentioned resources, projects, and some naming conventions. So you're going to be able to kind of address all those pain points that might exist when you're doing imports. Now, the way that it works is, just before we jump in to show the software, you will identify what you want to use for scrubbing. So there's a definition you can set up, and then you can reuse it. And that can be online or offline, and Sue will touch on that. So online means you're connected to a P6 database. But we also have offline, okay? And we started with offline because we know a lot of scheduling consultants who may work for multiple clients who would like to take advantage of the ability to scrub these XERs for them. So offline allows you to set things up without being directly connected to a P6 database. So we have both modes to achieve whatever's required depending on your situation. And then you can not only can you clean things up, which means kind of remove them, don't let them come in. You can also do some rolling down, replacing, and Sue's going to show you those in detail and in action. Now that means that you can not only deal with things that are missing, you can also deal with values that you want to change, and you can also identify when there's problems. Okay. Now from there, you're going to get output, and she's going to show that in action. And the result really is going to be a file that you can then import nice and clean, and also information that you could provide back to contractors, engineering companies, if they haven't quite met the mark. Okay, so I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sue. And I feel free to go ahead and ask questions while Sue's showing the software. And I'll try and tackle them as she's showing the software. And if we don't quite get through all the questions during the session, we can certainly tackle them afterwards through email and whatnot. But we'll probably be able to tackle them during the session. Okay, Sue, did I do it right?
You did.
Okay.
I am just going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can actually see what I'm doing here on my computer. So we're going live. So as Nicole mentioned, we do have two versions. One is connected to databases or to the database or several, and one is a standalone. I'm going to actually be using the one that is connected to a database today. And just like Primavera, you may have different databases that you work with. So we can actually point this at the databases that you are actually going to be using and importing to if you have more than one. So essentially you select the database that you are going to be logging into and you sign in, or that you're going to be importing into. Now, in our tool here, we have several subject areas that have some data that we can handle with P6-Scrubber. So you can see in the project and activity area, we can validate ID name, codes, and UDFs. For resources, we have some mapping. In addition to codes and UDFs, we have remapping of resources as well as units of measure. We can deal with calendars, we can remap roles, and we can validate cost accounts. So there are two ways that you can build out your definitions. One is to do it manually. So let's say in the instance I wanted to check some of my code types, my activity code types, as well as those dictionaries for those code types. First of all, I'm going to enable this particular module so that P6-Scrubber knows that I actually am going to be putting information in here that I want to touch on. Now, if I have the ability to decide if I have extra in this code, in this example, code types, what happens if they aren't defined down in my table here? What do I want to do with them? Do I want to allow them to come in, or do I want to actually remove them before I import that file? So I'm just going to select that I want to remove extra activity code types that come in that I don't have defined. Now, if I'm doing it manually, I'm going to use my add button over here to add my code type. So let's say I have a code type called vendor. Oh, helps if I spelled it correctly. Vendor. And I am going to be, it's a scope of global. And as I start entering information, it's going to kind of walk me through what I need to do in order to build this. So now it's telling me I must select an action. So I want to decide what I want to do with this. If I have this vendor that comes in, what do I want to do? So I'm going to say I want to keep this. Now, in the case that it is a project scope of activity ID, in this case, I could put the project ID that it is actually going to be mapped to. Now, with XERs, we know that we can bring in more than one project. So this is going to allow me to decide which project it needs to go to if there are more than one projects in that XER. Now, if I am hooked up like I am to a database, if I'm pointed at the database, I can actually go in and it's telling me I don't have a code type value there. I can go in and I can look. So I can start going in and taking a look. Well, there it is. I have it. So it's telling me it matches P6. Now, in the case, if it is a global and I wanted to roll it down, I could actually say I want to roll this down to a different level. Now I want to keep it at my global level, but I do have that ability to roll it down to the project level. Now I need to define my dictionary. So I can pop open this particular code type and I have an area where I have my dictionary values or that they can be entered. Again, I have that choice of whether I want to allow new values to come in or whether they must match my list. Now, when you are putting this type of information in, there are a lot of code values that could potentially match our code type. So instead of having to type these in all individually by adding this plus button, if there's a couple, maybe that's okay. But if there's not, I can do this bulk edit. Now, when I open up this bulk edit, it gives me a place where I can paste in. I could copy from a spreadsheet if I had one, or in the case that I'm going to show you right now, I could actually copy it from Primavera itself. So I can open this up. I can go to my P6 and I can go to my activity codes and I have my vendor codes here. I can highlight all of these and I can copy those values. Now, when I go back to P6-Scrubber, I can paste them. And then I've got some things that I can do once I've pasted them before I actually apply these in. First of all, if you're copying in, especially from Primavera, from P6, you do get the column headers in there. So we have the ability to remove that first header row. I also see that I've got these colors, and I don't need to have these colors in here. So I can simply say I want to remove that column. Now I just have my values in my description, and I can apply. And then it sets them all in for me. Now I would again want to go and select my actions just like I did up at the top there, and go down that way. So this is how I can create it manually. Now, another way that I can do it is, first of all, I'm going to go out and I'm going to clear out the information I've already put in. So I can import a new a file that I'm actually going to be working with. So I can go into import files. I can browse to where I have my file, and I can have P6 Loader pull out all the information that's already in there. Once I do that, I can say apply it, and then I can start working through my definitions. So in my projects, maybe I have some specifications of what type of pattern I need to follow or that needs to be met by this XER. And in my case, I'm going to do the project ID. So I'm going to enable this, of course. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to define that pattern. Now we can do some very simple things like just contains, starts with, ends with. However, we can also define a pattern that's more complex using something simplified. So for instance, first of all, I want to see 2 letters. And so I'm going to say I want to see 2 letters, and they need to be uppercase. I'm going to apply that. And now the next thing I want to see is I want to see some numbers, and I need 5 numbers to follow that. Now, after those letters and those numbers, I actually want to see a dash. So I'm going to say I want to see specific text. I'm going to say that dash is what needs to come next. And then after that, it doesn't matter. There may be some other identifying characteristics that could come in. So what I can do here is then I want to say any character. And if I put 0, it's going to allow an unlimited number of characters to come after that. So now I've applied out that. I've defined my pattern and what I want the scrubber to look for on that project ID. Now we've enabled this other box here where we can test the pattern. So right now I don't have anything in it, so obviously it's not complying with what I've set out. Now, if I were to maybe put in a valid one, I can make sure that what I've defined is actually going to be correct. So I can do that right here instead of having to run through an entire scrub and check it out. So I can test that. Now, secondly, I can go in and take a look at my codes. So I could enable this because I do have some codes in here. Maybe again, I want to scrub out those extra code values that come in if I have another file with additional ones. And then I can see that I have, some new items in here that are all valid. Everything's good. However, I have some issues with my district. And when I hover over it, it's going to tell me what that is. I have a dictionary validation that's failing. It doesn't match what I have in my P6. So I'm going to open up my dictionary values, and I can see that I have DIST5, and that is my ID for my District 5. Well, I know that I have district in there, and I know that I have a District 5. So what I can do is I can go into my remapping area. I can delete that out, and then I can actually remap that value to the value that already exists for me. Now I've cleaned up district, and now I look at client type. Okay, so client type, now it's telling me that it can't find a code type name in my or in my P6 for that. Well, in my case, I want to remove it. However, if I wanted to go ahead and add that, I can validate. You can see that it doesn't match P6. I can say that I want to go ahead and add this in by clicking this and saying, okay, I'm going to specifically allow this to come in. Now, if I don't want to do that, it doesn't match, and I want to scrub it out, I can tell P6-Scrubber that I want to scrub that value. The rest of these are okay, and I can go ahead and keep them. Now with UDFs, I can go and again see what's in there. It's bringing it in. And I have the ability to say what I want to do at each subject area of a UDF that pertains to my projects. So let's say I don't want to bring in any WBS ones. I could go in, I could say, all right, I'm not going to bring in this WBS one either. And I have a submitted file name. I don't want to bring that in. And let's see, I have one more here. I have this submittal date. Well, I know I have something similar to this. So maybe I want to go out and find out what my UDF is called that's about a submittal date. So I can go in and I can start typing in, and I see that it's actually submitted in my database and remap it. Now for activities, I have those same options. So I could go in and I could deal with each one of these and set those up. On resources, not only do I have codes and UDFs, but I also have the ability to remap my resources. So I would enable this. I have several different pages. I could go and check out all of those resources. But in my case, on this first page here, I have some detail on some resources that are coming in. Well, I don't want this kind of detail in this file. I want to actually kind of roll these all up into a higher level so that I can just report at that higher level. So I can go in and I could actually make these, I can remap each one of these and make sure that my new name actually matches what I'm mapping it to. And then when it comes in, it's actually going to redo these so I can report or I can see the information at that higher level. Once I have that set, I can move on to my next area. Now in resources, we also have the ability to look at those units of measure. So most of us have an existing dictionary of how we define units of measure. So to add in a bunch of extras for the same unit of measure, we could actually remap those to what we have defined. So in this case, I don't have this M3 that's going on here, at least not in this case or in this format. So I can go in and take a look. I actually have M3 with a capital M. And my name is actually cubic meters. So I've now taken this unit of measure and made it match what's already in my database. So I don't have a bunch of extra in my database. Now, in the way of calendars, we have our different levels of calendars. First of all, in my global calendar area, a lot of times you do not want to bring in these global calendars. Even if you have a calendar that is called the right name, it may not be defined the same in their database as it is in yours. So perhaps you want to roll these all down. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to roll all of these down. These are going to now take them down to the project level and maintain them in my file. However, now they're going to be at the project level so I don't pollute up any of my global calendars. Now, if I had additional ones that came in later, I could choose whether I wanted to roll down all the rest of them that I don't have defined or whether I want them to come in. In most cases, I would say that people are going to want to roll down those extra calendars just so that their own database does not get either overwritten or have additional calendars added in. Now in the project area, this is where it is showing the project calendars contained in this particular project ID. So if I had more than one project ID or more than one project, that would display here which project it actually belonged to. Now, let's say in the case of this calendar here, this 6-day calendar, when I'm remapping up here on my global calendars, oops, I went to the wrong place. On my global calendars, maybe I want to rename it or map it to that one that's already existing. I could actually put that in there. Now on my resources, a lot of times you have resource calendars that are already defined, and you want to be sure that the resource calendar that's coming in is actually matching the resource calendar that you have in your own database. So I can see that this one does not exist in my database. I can go out and I can choose which calendar I want it to remap to. So this one just doesn't have an only on it, but this one is in my database. I'm going to remap this calendar for my resources. Now I have roles, and roles work the same pretty much as our resources. So let's say I want to, that I actually have this scrubber here. So I'm going to change all these EAIs to SCRs. Let me make sure I'm remapping them the right way. There we go. Now what it's going to do is it's going to take this role and remap it to the role that I want it to go to in my database. And it looks like I did something wrong here. Oh, I know what it is. I need to make sure that my name is matching. There we go. All right, so I've taken care of all of my roles. Now the last bit is cost accounts. And cost accounts are going to work very much like the rest of them. You're going to have an action. Do you want to keep them? Do you want to remove them? Do I want to allow extra other cost codes to come in? Those are my options here. So I've got this all set out, and I'm going to be getting files on a regular basis from this particular client. So I can save this definition so that I can use it later. So I can come in, I can go down to this little area that says save and load definitions. So this is where I'm going to work with my definitions all the way around. I want to save as, and then I can then name it. And if I have any notes I want to put in there, I can put some notes on that are going to show up in my definition area. So then I can apply that. And if I close this window down, oh, it doesn't look like it went. Sorry. Demo example. There we go. Now I have it saved successfully, and I can see up here in the upper right-hand corner that I did have it indeed saved, and it is named demo example. So if I have a definition that is already defined, and I want to come in and I'm ready to run another file, another XER file that I've received on it, I can again go down into my save and load definitions. I can.
Hey, Sue.
Yes.
Could you show the save as so they can see how you can save it to a team as well?
That is not available
Oh.
in this version.
Oh,
The team
okay.
is, so we do have, if you do have a standalone version of Scrubber, you do, when you set up your users, because your users are not in Primavera on a standalone, you have to manually set up those users. Now, if you have a team that is going to be working with a certain client, you can actually say, all right, this team is going to be working with these demo definitions. And so only that team member would be able to see those. But in the case of where we're hooked up to P6, you don't have to define those. So those users automatically come in. You just enable them to be able to use this version.
Okay.
So that's the difference. That's one of the differences between
Okay.
the two versions. Now I'm going to select this demo version or this demo definition, and I want to actually run a scrub on with this definition. So I'm going to load this. It's going to go out. It's going to apply that definition in P6-Scrubber for me. And when it completes, let's hope I didn't lose a There we go. When it completes, it's going to load in my definition. So if I were to go in and take a look at all of these, I'm going to see what's actually defined here. I'm going to know what definition it is, again, by the name up in the upper right-hand corner. Now I can scrub my file using this. So I go down to my scrub files area and I browse to the file or files that I want to scrub. So let's say I want to scrub both of these files. They came from the same client. I'm going to use the same definition. I can choose both of these files and scrub them at the same time. So when I go process, it's going to go out and it's going to work on both of them. So if you have several that you need to do, you certainly can do that. Now, when I have results and it's finished, I have some options here. Now, the first thing I'm probably going to want to do is view a report of what happened when this scrubber definition was applied. So I'm going to say I want to view that report. And when I do that, I'm going to get a report that opens up, and I don't know why I'm running so slow. I apologize for that. Oh, looks like I'm not getting my report coming up. Let me try that again.
Internet.
Yeah, it might be my internet. Let me try to do this again. Oh, it looks like I don't even have. All right, let's do this again. Oh, there it is. It popped up. I found it.
Yeah,
It just
internet.
took a while. I must have some internet issues. I apologize there. So now I've got my report that is showing for me. So at the top, I have my basics. I have an overall kind of high level look at what's happened here. So I can see with my project IDs that in my name, those were good. I didn't have any changes that happened with those. However, with just about everything else, I did. Now, if it's blank, that means that I don't have it enabled. That means, I don't have that little tick mark that I said to enable that particular scrub portion. So as I scroll down, I can see very easily what has changed and what has not. So in the case, as I get down to my project codes and my dictionaries for project codes, I can see that up at the top in those gray tables, these are what I have defined for in my dictionary or in my definition. As I scroll down, I'm going to have my results with some colors in those tables. So I can easily see that for my client and my client type, those were scrubbed out. They were removed. In the way of district, it was not remapped, nor was it scrubbed, but I did have a dictionary change. I had something happen with my dictionary. And then in my type of schedule, I remapped it to schedule status, and it's telling me that, as well as I had an addition. Down below, I'm going to get some detail about my dictionary. For that District 5, remember I had D5 that was actually in my database. It remapped it for me. In the case of my schedule status, I had a new dictionary value come in. And so it's telling me that it was added. And it's going to give me that kind of accounting as I go through this, this whole report. Now, if everything looks okay, I'm ready to import. If not, I might want to go back, change my definition to more of what I'm expecting, and save it and rerun. However, in my case, I'm ready to just download my results. So I can download.
I guess the other option too, Sue, is to let the contractor or engineering company know that, there's too many problems with this file, right?
Right.
Okay.
And so at this point, you may want to send that back. And it looks like I'm getting a delay on all of those clicks I did earlier. So I apologize.
Yeah, so
Okay,
we
now
put
let's
that auditability in there just for that reason, because especially maybe the first one or two that you're getting from them, there might be so many things that are a problem and you want to identify them, right? So that's partly why we built that in. That way.
exactly. Now it's taking a minute again for it to show the download results. But when I do download results, I'm going to get two files. I'm going to get the cleaned up XER, and it's going to append it with that XER, or that XER with the date and time that it was scrubbed. It's also going to give me an HTML file with my report that we just looked at in it. So if I wanted to share those results with my contractor or my client that is sending me that file and give them some feedback, I could send them the entire report. Maybe I just want to send them a copy and paste just a piece of that report and send it back to them. So I can easily give them feedback on what happened when I scrubbed that file and what I found. And it looks like it's not going to work for me. But luckily, I would be able to go in and then import that file or use that HTML. So, and again, luckily, I have already imported the file so that we didn't have to wait for it. So I've imported this, this file with the, you can see the indicators and things that are going in, and I'm just opening up that file by itself. When I go in, I'm going to go back to projects here. I can see that I have some indicators that are telling me for each one of those, again, those subject areas that I was dealing with, how things measured up. I can tell that my project codes were changed, as well as my dictionary values for my project codes. I've found that D5 came in just fine because it matched. I can see that this BD value was actually added. So it's going to give me these indicators. They're going to tell me what actually changed, and I can display those. Another thing that can come in, that you can choose to have come in, is again another copy of that report as a notebook. Now this is going to help you to like say you have a claim or something. This report is going to show exactly what was changed to make sure that the integrity of the schedule itself, you didn't change anything major on it when you actually imported that in. Now, when I go into my activities, first of all, if I take a look at my my activities themselves and my activity codes, and I display those, I can see how they've all measured up. So it looks like my vendors came in really cleanly. They're all good. I've got greens all the way across. Now, in the case of my work type, looks like I had some that were fine. But then I have some that are missing. It's going to alert me to the fact that, hey, this was not defined. It was either scrubbed out, maybe that the code or the dictionary value that was in there, I didn't allow to come in, or maybe it just didn't exist. It's going to alert me to that. Now, in the case of my discipline, it's showing me that my discipline, these were created. So they were added. So I have an X next to them indicating that they were added. And then again, telling me that I have some that are missing. I can see easily that my activity code UDFs, I had some that were scrubbed out here, as well as my cost codes, which came through and everything looked fine. Now let's take a look at how how my roles and resources changed. Now I do have the original project in my database. That's not going to be the case usually when you're importing in. Thus the reason that you would scrub those. But I wanted to be able to show you how the roles and resources that they were remapped and how that looks. So I'm just going to look at my roles and resources. And at the top is my original. Then when they were scrubbed and cleaned up, I now have my new, indicating that I have new values that were remapped and that this is what they are now. Now, the idea is to not pollute your database. So maybe you don't want to have indicators come in, or maybe you don't want to have that notebook come in with that imported file. Well, we've given you the ability to pick and choose on that. So the last area in P6-Scrubber that I want to visit is this general area. This is where these are on by default. But let's say you don't want indicators coming in. You don't want a bunch of extra UDFs for those indicators that to be created or anything like that. I can actually turn this off, and P6-Scrubber will not create those indicators. I can do the same with that notebook. If I don't want that notebook coming in, I can choose to not bring that in also. So you can save this also as part of your definition so that when you scrub, they are not created. So really, what we've tried to do is just hit on those subject areas that give people the most pain points, the biggest pain points when they are trying to import schedules and not pollute what they already have in their Primavera database, their Primavera P6. So before I move on and give it back to Nicole, I want to see if there's any questions that maybe I need to address while I'm still sharing my screen.
Okay, there were a few that came in and I tackled them as we're going, but let's just reiterate for those that were watching. Moving things from global down to project was one of the questions. So how do I move codes, calendars? UDFs are a little different because, of course, UDFs are only global. So you would need to rename them. Can we just touch on those
Sure.
3 points, just one at a time, so it's clear?
Yes. So in my activity codes, if I wanted to roll a code down, it's at the global level. There's actually a place where I can choose to roll that code down. If that's check marked, it's going to, what P6-Scrubber is going to do is it's going to take that, in this case, the mitigation code that is at the global level, and roll it down to the project where it is used. So if I had several projects in this particular file, this XER, it's only going to roll it down to the pertinent projects where it resides. So if I had one project that had it and 2 others that don't, it's only going to go down to that project that actually has it. So that's how I would roll down an activity code from a global level down to the project level. For my calendars, I actually take that action. So these all came down as a global calendar because they're in this global area. So I have the ability to select which ones I want to roll down. So in my case, I decided to roll down all of those because I don't really know, I have this standard 5-day work week, but I don't know that they've defined theirs the same as what I have defined. So I went ahead and I rolled down everything. And again, it's only going to roll down to the project where it's used. It's not going to roll it down to multiple if it's not used in there. And considering if there are multiple projects in your XER. Now, I can also deal with calendars that are maybe not defined. Maybe I have another XER that I'm using, or that's come in and they've added some additional global calendars to it that are coming in. I can say, okay, even if they aren't defined, I still want to roll those down. That's what this check mark is here. That's going to say anything extra that comes in, you're going to roll it down to the project level.
Yeah, so this definition will still work the next time you get it. Get
Exactly.
a new update if they add a calendar. Okay.
So that's how we're rolling globals down to a project level. You have to make that conscious decision to do it, but once it's set, you can save it in your definition and it will do it every time when it encounters that global code or calendar.
Okay. And then how would you tackle UDFs? Let's say they want to put a prefix on their UDFs to know that it came from a certain project.
Yeah. So absolutely. So let's say I am keeping my change order UDF, but I want to put a prefix on it. I can actually say, this is what I want to name it. It's going to tell me, I mean, it did match, but if it doesn't match, I can go in, it's showing me, doesn't match P6. If I want to rename it that, if I want to remap it to this new one, I can then say, yes, I do want to rename it. I do want to add it and validate that I'm okay. It's going to allow the creation here. So that's how I would put a prefix or a suffix or however you're handling that in here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so those were the main questions so far.
Okay.
So if anyone on the line is thinking of some other questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat or the question area. Either one is good. And I guess I'll take it back, Sue. We'll wrap it up.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks, Sue. Okay, well, so Sue gave you a nice rundown of how the software works. And I think, our focus was to try and make sure that it was easy to use because, not everyone using these tools are necessarily P6 experts, 30 years in the business, that sort of thing. And one of our key clients who's using it, they actually have their engineering folks doing the imports because they have a scheduler helping them set up the definition, and then the imports are done by more than one person. Okay. So some of the key benefits, of course, if you're working in a large program and you've got contractors, engineering companies sending you in schedules, you want to be able to let them know quickly if there's some issues, problems with that. This helps make that process much less painful, much quicker, so that you're ensuring the quality in your P6 is good, not only just in the tidiness of the codes, but also giving that feedback much quicker. We've tried to make the tool very configurable, easy to use, lots of color coding and flagging to let people know if they're good or there's problems. So very easy to use, and the definitions are reusable. Okay, so that's the key thing there, is to make that easy. In terms of making sure your P6 is clean, that's really been an important piece to us because that's what we do all day. We help clients, a lot of our clients are large owner type groups that have many projects on the go, and they've got a team that's constantly dealing with P6, keeping it clean. So that's been a big push, a big driving force on why we made P6-Scrubber and how we put it together. Just to make sure that managing P6 is much easier, much less work. So those senior folks are spending more energy helping run the projects. That's really been a big time saving there. And of course, the accuracy of what is in P6. When your schedule is changing because someone did an import and overwrote your calendar and you don't even know about it, you're trying to figure out what the heck is happening. That's a big frustration point. So this helps make that process go away, basically, goes away. So that you don't have those stress points, and nothing worse than trying to get your monthly reports out and things aren't making sense. And we've been there too many times. So this was also something that we found a big benefit for the tool coming from that. Also just reporting. So making sure your codes and things that you're using for management reporting or dashboarding out into other tools, with our dashboard, or if you're using Power BI or Business Objects or Tableau, these sorts of things, just making sure that that data stays the way it was last week, the week before, and no surprises coming up when you don't need them. So those are some of the benefits that we've seen with our clients. and let me know if there's anything that you think Emerald can help you with. Okay. So if there is, if something's jumping out at you right now and you see some value, go ahead and let us know. You can use the poll. If there's a way that you'd like us to follow up, if you want to stay on the mailing list, if there's actually a reach out that you're hoping from us, we're happy to do it. Or if you think that maybe we should reach out to some other people that you know in your organization or outside, go ahead and let us know. So you can use that little survey to do that. And that just helps us know how we can continue to help drive your P6, your Primavera usage, your Oracle tool usage to be better. Okay. That's been our focus from the beginning. We're just into our 28th year of being Emeralds. And before that, I worked in claims and disputes. So I understand the importance of schedules, keeping the data right. So if you're in litigation, that's something I've been through and I understand how important that is. Now, from the beginning, Emerald's always had programmers on the team. That's been a key focus for us from the very beginning. So this is why you see that we've got so many great add-on tools to P6 and other Oracle tools like Unifier. We had a huge number of them for contract management, but of course that's slowly being retired now. Because there's nothing worse than spending your time doing mundane work all day instead of bringing the value that you went into project controls for, right? So we're trying to minimize that frustrating kind of low value data entry work that we sometimes get stuck in and keep you in a high value project controls work. So that's really been our focus from the beginning. That's why we have so many integrations that we've done. And so many tools that we've created to enhance your usability with the product line from Oracle. Okay, so I already asked you. Go ahead, let us know how we can help. You can use that poll if you wish, or if you want to reach out after the session, that's fine too. You've got Sue's email there. If that's probably a good way to get the ball rolling. If there's some things you want to understand better and see whether Scrubber could bring value to your organization. So I'll stay on the line, and Sue will stay on the line for another few minutes. If there are any questions, we'll tackle them. If not, and you'd rather just reach out, that's fine too. You've got our info there, and we're happy to continue the conversation related to Scrubber or any of the other offerings that Emerald has got the T-shirt for. It's 28 years, 27 years of Emerald, and 5 years prior to that using Primavera tools. So we definitely have a depth of knowledge on the team, and we'd love to help you. So thanks for joining us today. And if you have any questions, go ahead and chat them in. If not, we'll wrap up in another minute or so.
Thank you for joining.